It began on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. Angel Parker, a vibrant 24-year-old, was at work. She was a phlebotomist, skilled at her job. But that afternoon, something felt wrong. A wave of dizziness, so intense it felt like the floor was tilting beneath her feet. She gripped the edge of a counter to steady herself. Her vision blurred. The familiar sterile walls of the clinic seemed to warp and bend. A sharp, piercing pain shot through the back of her head. Later that day, she drove home, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. At home, she collapsed onto her bed, the room spinning around her. Her mother, seeing her daughter's distress, rushed to her side. She described the vertigo, the head pain, the strange feeling of disconnection from her own body. That night, sleep offered no escape. Angel was young. She was healthy. Now she was trapped in a body that had suddenly betrayed her. This was the first shot fired in a war she didn't even know was being waged against her. And no one, least of all Angel, could have imagined the long and bewildering battle that lay ahead. The next morning, the symptoms were worse. Angel couldn't walk without holding onto the walls. Her head throbbed with a persistent, agonizing pain. Her mother, now deeply alarmed, drove her to the emergency room. In the ER, they ran the usual tests. They checked her blood pressure, they drew blood, they performed a basic neurological exam. Everything came back normal. They suggested it might be a severe case of labyrinthitis. They sent her home with medication for dizziness and a referral. But the medication did nothing. The world continued to spin. He ran tests on her hearing and balance. Again, the results were normal. He was baffled. The family's hope began to fray, replaced by a growing sense of dread. He sent her to a neurologist. An MRI of her brain was ordered to rule out a tumor or a stroke. The MRI images came back. They were clean. Her brain appeared perfectly healthy. He prescribed migraine treatments, anti-seizure drugs. None of them touched the symptoms. With each normal test result, the mystery deepened. The doctors were running out of ideas. The days bled into weeks. Angel was a prisoner in her own home. She could no longer work. She couldn't drive. Her family watched helplessly as this vibrant young woman faded before their eyes. Friendships drifted. She felt profoundly alone. The physical toll was immense. The dizziness was so profound that she often had to crawl to the bathroom. The headache was a relentless tormentor, a hot spike driven into the back of her skull. But the emotional toll was, in many ways, even more devastating. The uncertainty gnawed at her. Some doctors, unable to find a physical cause, began to hint that her symptoms might be psychosomatic. They suggested anxiety. It made her feel dismissed and invisible. It added a layer of shame to her suffering. Her family felt the strain acutely. Her mother became her primary caregiver. She became a fierce advocate for her daughter, challenging doctors and demanding more tests. But even her strength began to waver. Friendships suffered. From the outside, she looked the same. But she couldn't join them for dinners or movies. The financial burden added another layer of stress. Medical bills piled up. Co-pays and expensive scans drained their savings. The home became a sick room. Laughter was replaced by hushed conversations. Angel felt a profound sense of isolation. The weight of it all was crushing. It was a storm that threatened to tear the family apart, even as they clung to each other for survival. The future she had planned was slipping away. The days passed in a blur of appointments and unanswered questions. She mourned the life she had lost. The weight of the unknown settled like a permanent shadow. The search for a diagnosis became a grueling odyssey. Angel and her mother navigated a complex, fragmented medical system. They saw specialist after specialist. It wasn't multiple sclerosis. It wasn't Lyme disease. It wasn't a brain tumor. It wasn't a stroke. It wasn't an inner ear disorder. It wasn't a psychiatric condition. Each no was a small relief, but also a step deeper into the wilderness. The lack of an answer became its own monster. Angel's mother kept a detailed, overflowing binder. She brought it to every appointment, hoping someone might see a pattern. She argued with insurance companies and spent hours booking distant experts. Even her strength began to waver. Angel was losing hope. The medical labyrinth seemed to have no exit. It was a maze of dead ends and false turns. They were trapped by the limits of their own knowledge. Angel felt like a medical curiosity, a collection of symptoms without a disease. She was lost within it, waiting for someone to find a way out. The frustration was palpable. The list of discarded diagnoses grew longer. There were dark days when she felt like giving up. Months had now passed. Angel's condition had not improved. If anything, it had worsened. The headaches were more frequent, the vertigo more severe. It was in this atmosphere of desperation that they met a new doctor, a neurologist at a major university hospital known for taking on difficult cases. He listened patiently as Angel and her mother recounted the long, frustrating story. He reviewed the thick binder of records and examined Angel carefully. Like all the others, his initial tests were normal. He too was puzzled.
I believe you. I don't know what this is yet, but we are going to figure it out.
For Angel and her mother, those words were a lifeline. This doctor decided to think outside the box. He started to consider rarer possibilities. He decided to order a different kind of scan, not an MRI, but a cerebral angiogram. It was a more invasive procedure, but potentially revealing. He explained the risks, a small chance of stroke or arterial damage, but felt the gamble was necessary. The procedure involves threading a catheter up to the brain and injecting contrast dye to image the vessels. It was a desperate move, born of a refusal to give up. The day of the cerebral angiogram was fraught with tension. Angel was nervous, but hopeful. As the procedure began, the contrast dye filled the blood vessels of her brain, illuminating them in stark black and white. At first, everything looked normal. The major arteries were clear and wide, but then the radiologist focused on the smaller arteries and magnified the images. And that's when he saw it. In several of the medium-sized arteries, there were sections abnormally narrow, followed by sections that were dilated. A distinct string of beads appearance. The radiologist had seen it before, though only a handful of times. He called Angel's neurologist down to the suite. As the neurologist looked, relief washed over his face. This was it. The objective physical evidence that proved Angel's symptoms were real. It explained everything. The constricted arteries were spasming, cutting off blood flow to parts of her brain and causing the vertigo and intense headaches. In the waiting room, the neurologist found Angel's mother and said softly, "We found it. We know what it is." Tears welled up, not only relief, but the return of hope. The nightmare finally had a name. The official diagnosis was reversible cerebral vasoconstriction syndrome, RCVS. It's a rare and poorly understood condition characterized by a sudden, temporary narrowing of the arteries in the brain. When the neurologist explained the diagnosis, Angel and her mother felt immense relief and validation. She wasn't crazy. The doctor said causes are often unknown, but can be triggered by certain medications, illegal drugs, or hormonal changes after childbirth. In Angel's case, no trigger was found. The good news, the prognosis is generally excellent. The reversible part of the name is key. It usually resolves over weeks to months. Having a name changed everything. Friends who drifted away now rallied with meals and messages. The nightmare was over and the healing could begin. The string of beads on her angiogram was the definitive sign. Over time, it would resolve. Knowing the enemy is the first step to fighting it. The focus was preventing stroke and managing symptoms. The diagnosis gave Angel her sanity back and her community back. Compassion and understanding followed. It lifted shame and self-doubt. The turning point had arrived. With the diagnosis came a clear treatment plan. The primary goal: prevent the artery spasms from causing a stroke. This meant strict blood pressure control and a calcium channel blocker to relax the blood vessels. The effect wasn't immediate. Recovery from RCVS is a slow process. The body needs time to heal. Angel still had good days and bad days. She rested when symptoms came on and avoided triggers that might spike blood pressure. She slowly reintroduced herself to the world. A short walk to the end of the driveway was a major victory. Emotional recovery was as important as physical recovery. She worked through anger and anxiety and started seeing a therapist. Talking about being dismissed was crucial to healing. It helped her reclaim her narrative. Gradually, over several months, Angel got her life back. Headaches faded to a dull memory. She returned to her job as a phlebotomist. Each normal day felt like a gift. The world no longer felt like a spinning, hostile place. It was solid and stable beneath her feet. The reversible syndrome had reversed. The road to recovery was long and arduous, but with every step she left the shadow of her illness behind. The journey through the labyrinth of the unknown had changed them all. For Angel, the experience was transformative. It gave her a profound appreciation for life and health. She discovered strength she never knew she had. She learned the importance of advocating for herself and trusting her body. The crisis tested them, but it also forged an unbreakable bond. They came out stronger and more united than ever. The case left an impact on the neurologist. It became a teaching tool against diagnostic anchoring and for humility in medicine. It reinforced the necessity of persistence and creative thinking when faced with a medical puzzle. Today, years later, Angel is healthy and thriving. The string of beads on her angiogram has resolved. The reversible syndrome has reversed. The story of her journey remains. fear, frustration, hope, perseverance. Behind every medical mystery is a human being, a family, a life hanging in the balance. Angel's story is a testament to resilience and the relentless pursuit of an answer that can make all the difference.